I'm sitting here drinking some kefir by the Rhine River, and the Rhine is basically what my whole trip revolves around because I started at where the Rhine originates and then followed it down to Basel, where I'll be ending up today. Just let's say 20 kilometers from here, or 30. And Basel is where the Rhine starts to be commercialized, let's say, and used for shipping. And where I'm right now is the Hochrhein, where it's a sort of, well, it's not no man's land because I'm in Germany and the opposite is Switzerland, but the river is not used for these commercial purposes, let's say, because only after Basel, that's the first industrial hub for what is it, pharmaceutics and larger firms and such, and from Basel onwards, it is becoming a heavily trafficked river. And the Rhine is also the spiritual heart of Europe because the whole Rhine uh, connects to Western Europe in a sense, and it leads to my country as well. So I'm sort of spiritually connected to the Rhine River as well because it's just basically close to my home. And to see where it originates, where sort of the heart of Europe lies, at least Western Europe, because Eastern Europe is more surrounding the Danube River, let's say it's their spiritual heart, although they, I don't know if they necessarily see it that way. Um, in the West, we're quite strongly attached to this river, in a sense. It's been with us for, I don't know, many, many centuries that we've used it for to grow our civilizations. And that also ties in with what I just said about the brewery, let's say. All this might that we have in front of us, how are we and why are we sort of letting it slip away in this modernized, globalized world, which has its benefits but also its downsides, because it seems to be at the cost of what connects us. And that sort of ties in with this trip to the Rhine River as well, because I just wonder why we cannot afford such large breweries anymore, such large hotels and complexes where years and years on end families celebrated, I don't know, birthdays, whatever. They came there for work gatherings, celebrations, weddings, and in these huge hotel complexes. And there was always beer and food. And nowadays it is shut down because of the energy costs and whatever is happening in Europe. That it sort of beggars belief that in our modernization, which is sort of the richest, wealthiest time we've ever had, we really have everything. Like we can travel wherever we want, but somehow the things that make us unique, let's say a German beer garden, a beer house, and just having a beer whenever you want, even if it's an alcohol-free one, that's gone. It's slowly disappearing because someone or something, the greater unknowns, are sort of deciding it for us, and that's what's disappointing of the current era, you know? And how is it possible that through, let's say, the 100 or 200 years that all these large complexes operated, probably there were some hardships at some point, but they still operate. They could pay their electricity. Electricity has been used for a long time in Europe, obviously, and they sort of always got by. First of all, to make such a large complex costs a lot of time and money, but it worked back in the day, and suddenly it's not possible anymore. And these unique old places, they need to disappear. And why is that? Maybe part of it is the green agenda as well, where with the energy costs that are rising, you need to isolate such a complex. It needs to meet stricter standards for this isolation and for fire safety, for example. And these places are just put out of business because they cannot afford the reinvestment to replace all the windows for this isolation and whatever. And then these unique places, they all disappear. And it's typically around these sort of spiritual places like the Rhine River, which just is and always has been for thousands of years. It just flows steadily. That's a thing you cannot stop. But the things around the river, they are sort of changing and stopping currently, and it's being exchanged for something I might not very much like. That's, for example, the globalization, and you can only buy beer when someone tells you, and it can only be a certain brand, but the local places are shut down. And the Rhine is just observing it. It doesn't care. It doesn't take note of it, let's say. It flows steadily onward, but he thinks outside of this spiritual river, they're definitely changing. And I'm not sure if all Europeans are on board with it, you know? Um, what we've built as a large civilization is slowly slipping through our hands. It's not just a beer brewery, but we're losing our sense of identity, let's say. What it means to be German is to have these cultural heritages and not to have a very large brewery in Europe or just a couple that make all of the beer, let's say. It's not supposed to be like that, and it never was. It never has been, but suddenly we're all just giving it out of our hands. And might just be sort of a rumble, but it concerns me what's going on, and I don't like it one bit. I want to keep Europe in. I sometimes feel as if I'm born in a different era, or in a wrong era, let's say. And let's even my parents' generation, if I was born in their time, I could never afford to travel, for example, so I'm sort of spoiled with what I can do. But at the same time, um, the identity loss is something that concerns me because it doesn't seem to stop here. It needs to go for one large entity, it seems, a global government, European government, and they'll decide for us, you know. I'm not on board with it, let's say, but do I have a choice? Like, I reap the benefits, definitely, so I cannot complain too much in that sense. And we're all just made sort of comfortable with our bread and circuses and our piss tasting beers and our Bud Lights that are heavily over commercialized with the current thing. And what's left is just grey slop, a grey slop. But anyways, the Rhine flows onwards, and in some way it still connects all of us. So I'll catch you later.